Okay, now live.
Thank you, Daniel. Right, we'll proceed. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching this live stream of this meeting by the Cambridgeshire County Council's website. There's also a risk we may run out of technical problems, but I would ask for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed, and the public broadcast will be paused. If this is not possible to be addressed, the fault, the meeting will be abandoned until such time as we can reconvene. I now have to do a roll call of those that are present. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I'm here.
Councillor Hickford.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Hudson.
Present, Chair.
Dr. Liz Robin.
Present, Chair.
Wendy Overwellborn.
Present.
Charlotte Black.
Present.
Adrian Chapman.
Yes, present.
Jan, he's still in the same place as well. Jan Thomas. No. Gary Howson.
Present.
Hi, Gary. Louise Camper. No. Councillor Bill Hanley.
Present.
Val Moore.
Present.
Councillor Ray Bisbee.
Present, Chairman.
And myself, Councillor John Holditch. Present. We've received apologies from Louise Mitchell. Have we any update on apologies?
No, Chair, but I will take Jan and Louis' absence as an apology.
That's very good of you. Would be polite if they did apologise, wouldn't it? Right. Does anybody wish to declare a disposable or pecuniary interest in non-statutory disclosable interest? Anybody want to do that? Can't see anybody. Can you? No. Okay. We'll take. Nobody has any. Okay. We've been asked to approve the notes of the meeting of the 6th of November 2020 as a correct record. Can I ask if anyone does not agree with this proposal to use their raise hand function now? Thank you. Nobody wishes to do that. I can see no objections, so the notes as correct record, and we'll take that as carried. Should indicate that they wish to speak. No, I haven't got any of that. Right. The action log has been included in published papers for this meeting, and the actions are marked completed, except an actions a second action on page 16. Can be acting police crime commissioner provide an update, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I was asked where the money went. It does go to the government. However, the fixed penalty tickets are being managed through the cameras, tickets and collisions unit, as they have a police-led prosecution, and the police prosecute those cases. To my knowledge, there is no backlog with these cases, but we are currently seeing them listed in January, which is the normal for timescale for these. If a defendant pleads not guilty, then these pass on to the CPS for trial. As I believe I've been informed that some of this money will come back to councils. So councils who want to know if that exact money comes back to you will probably find it from the Home Office or whatever. But we have had 12 tickets this week from police around Cambridgeshire, and they continue to patrol with the marshals that are around. That's my update. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Now to Val Moore to provide an update on two actions marked down for Sandy Smith on pages 16 and 17. Val?
Thank you. Yes, Healthwatch is part of the comms cell, if that's the name for it, where help is asked for and offered on those matters. So I think that's ongoing. And in terms of feedback from people receiving letters. We haven't received any yet from any members of the public, but we'll pass those through when we do, if we do.
Thank you, Val. Does any member or officer have any questions on these actions? Can't see any. Thank you very much. On that basis, we approve this note as carried. Okay, so I think we go now to council officers' questions. Councillors or officers' questions. Lead officer, would you respond, please?
So questions, I'm really sorry, but what questions have we had?
Don't think we've had any, have we?
Chairman, I think it's only if we have questions.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
the answer is we haven't had any questions.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay. We've received, well, it does say over the page, it says we've received no questions, but it didn't say it on the page we were working. All right. Yeah. Can I invite Liz Robin, Director of Public Health, to provide the board with a presentation on this next item, please? Item 5.
Thank you, Councillor Holditch. And really my role is just to start the discussion on the implications for Peterborough and Cambridgeshire following the government's post-lockdown announcement. What I would like to bring to your attention is the very latest figures that have just been published on the government website at 4 o'clock today for our case rates per 100,000 population. And these are the rates that we look at every day to track the progress going forward. So the latest rates that are published are for Cambridgeshire. We have 84 cases per 100,000 population, and that's an improvement on where we were a week ago. And in Peterborough, we have 199 cases per 100,000 population. And again, that is some improvement. The England average is now 200 cases per 100,000 population. So that is the very latest update. I think when we look at the broader figures across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, what we're seeing is that our recent lockdown has had an impact. In Cambridge City, South Cambridgeshire and Huntingdonshire, we're seeing more of a decrease at this point. And in Peterborough, Fenland and East Cambridgeshire, we're seeing more of a levelling off. So in all areas, we are seeing a good impact compared to a continued increase in cases, which is likely to have been what we'd have seen without the lockdown. In a sense, speculation, my view is that there may be a link to the sorts of work that people do. More people in Peterborough, Fenland and East Cambridgeshire are in essential jobs where they need to go out to work. And are working at the front line, meeting with other people. And there's probably more scope for working from home in the Cambridge, South Cambridgeshire and perhaps Huntingdonshire areas. So that may have some link to the patterns that we're seeing. What's essential, I would say, is looking ahead to the point at which we come out of lockdown. All of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has been placed in Tier 2, the high tier of intervention. And what I'd like to say about that is that is really where most of England is. Nearly all of England has been placed in either Tier 2 or Tier 3, the very high tier of intervention. And of the areas that haven't, they're island figures in their names. So the Isle of Wight, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly are the only areas placed in Tier 1. And there are very good reasons for this. And those reasons are that Tier 1, the medium tier, is very similar to the medium tier before lockdown. And we do know that those interventions actually aren't enough to stop a rise in infections. And areas that were in that tier were seeing infections rising before the lockdown. So going into the high tier is about safeguarding the progress that we've made to keep our infections down and to stop that spread of infection. And as always, I would really like to say thank you to people in Peterborough and people in Cambridgeshire for all the efforts that they've put in and the sacrifices that they've made, because our rates of coronavirus could be far higher without all that work that our residents and our communities have done. So going into the high tier is about safeguarding the progress that we have made and keeping those coronavirus rates down, stopping that spread. And we do have some risks coming up down during December. So we have quite a big movement around the country as people move back from universities. And we also have the increased mixing of families at Christmas. So those two risks, we want to keep our infection rates as low as possible in order to prepare for Christmas. And to do that, being in the high tier is the place that will help to keep those rates down. So that's kind of where the epidemiology takes us. And I'd now really like to open up to questions and discussion.
Does Father Christmas have to self-isolate?
Good question. I'm happy to advise him if necessary.
Oh, but you are, yes. Provided he leaves the presents down your chimney, you'll be all right, won't you? Okay, members, any questions of Liz on this? Please raise your hand if you have. I think you got away with it, Liz. Oh, no, there is somebody.
Well, I couldn't let Liz get away that lightly, Chairman. So I just thought I'd have a half a question, because obviously on the news, the politicians keep getting grilled about, is there any chance of ever getting out of the tier? And it does seem to be more that there's a possibility that you may get out of tier 3 into tier 2, but get out of tier 2 into tier 1 is extremely unlikely this side of the end of the year. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, please, Liz?
I think you're right, yeah.
Okay, so I'll give my view from the scientific epidemiology perspective. My view on that as Director of Public Health is that being in the high tier means that we should be able to at least keep our infections stable. And if people observe the other COVID safe behaviours, we would hope to bring our rates down. We are, as I've said, approaching a potentially high risk period, in that we have the big move of students right across the country, so this affects everywhere. And we will have people coming into Cambridgeshire and Peterborough from higher risk areas. And that may also happen during the Christmas period as families travel to see each other. So we are in a particular position coming into December. And we're also at a time when the health service is under almost maximum pressure, because we know that the height of winter is when the health service is busy for many, many reasons, and we need to protect our NHS. So with Christmas coming and with the relaxation we're seeing then, with the NHS pressures, there are a number of reasons based on the epidemiology why we absolutely want to hold our rates of coronavirus down as far as we possibly can. And having most of the country in the high or very high tiers will help us to do that locally and nationally. So that would be my advice based on the epidemiology at this point. As we move forward and the vaccine comes in, and we obviously need to watch the developments on that, but it looks very hopeful as we're able to protect more of our most vulnerable residents. And as we move into spring, with a change in the weather, more people being outside, and some reduction of NHS pressures, I think that in a sense, the response to the epidemiology can change. So I do think it will be very much a moving picture, depending on those developments that we see going forward, that very much give us hope that we will be moving out of the current position. But that would be my judgment at this time.
The answer was, simple answer was, no, we won't be out before the end of the year. Okay, I don't see anybody else asking, so I will move on to item 6. And item 6 is going to be split into 3 parts, with questions to Adrian, and to Christine Birchall, and to you, Liz, I guess. So we're going to do that, and I'll take a discussion in between each one. Okay, so the first one's down to Adrian.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Great to see you all. What we've heard from Liz is the latest on the epidemiology, hot off the press, it sounds like, which is really helpful. What's clear is that we've got to really hold our nerve, remain resilient, remain focused, keep our communities strong, support our businesses, keep people safe. And that really is a continuation of the effort that our system and our partners and every one of us have been working on since day one of this awful situation. And a lot of that has been held together through the mandatory local outbreak control plan, which is one of the conditions required of all local resilience forums to put in place earlier this year. I think we're probably on version 3 or 4 of ours now, and every time there's a new piece of guidance, we have to go into it and update the local outbreak control plan. Rightly so, it needs to be current, it needs to be dynamic, and that's very much what ours is. Underneath the local outbreak control plan sits an action plan, and that action plan up to just very recently had within it 90 separate actions, 90 separate actions, which were all about creating the right system, the right methodology for tracking the virus, the right methodology for responding to the virus, and the right approach to working collaboratively as a system to support our residents, including those that are most vulnerable. 92% of those 90 actions are now complete, with the remaining actions either being flagged as amber with only 2 red actions. So we're definitely at a place where actually, given where we are with the epidemiology, the action plan itself is no longer keeping up with the requirement to keep that pace, to keep that energy and keep that focus. So we are going to present to you this evening a very high-level summary of a review of that action plan. So before I do, I wanted just to elaborate slightly on the achievements that we, as a local outbreak engagement board and the rest of the system have managed already through the local outbreak control plan. So, and these things I think have become now part of our way of life. They've become business as usual. So first of all, the whole way that our outbreak control centre is operating, the way we receive, process, digest and analyse daily, often multiple times a day, intelligence, how that's then passed out through the system, how the system is responding, and how within hours we can set up a community-based response. The ability to stand up local testing provision, again, often at short notice, has come out of the creation of that local outbreak control plan. And the recent rollout of enhanced contact tracing, which has been operating in Peterborough now for a few weeks, but has now been successfully rolled out across the rest of Cambridgeshire. So this is the contact tracing work that we pick up locally where the national NHS test and trace system has failed to make contact after 24 hours. We're hovering at around about an 85% success rate now with that enhanced local contact testing scheme, an amazing result. Lots and lots of communications and marketing activity, which Christian will touch on in a second, and a phenomenal amount of community engagement activity, all born out of those 90 actions that I've described. But the new plan, we want to be even more dynamic, even more resilient, and we want this plan to last until there is a comprehensive vaccine programme in place, and that indeed forms part of the plan itself. And there are 4 main themes in the new plan that I wanted to share with the board to give the board reassurance. The first is around maintaining that really sharp focus around outbreak management, outbreak prevention, outbreak control. That's fundamental to our effort, and within that theme sits a wide range of activities and interventions at quite a granular level to ensure that our communities, our businesses, our visitors all know what they need to do to keep themselves and each other safe. The second theme relates to community engagement and communications. We figure actually that the biggest way we can continue to drive down the virus in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is to support our residents to stay safe, but also support them to change their behaviours if their current behaviours aren't quite where they need to be, and also to support businesses to ensure they continue to be COVID compliant. So a huge effort in the plan, working with our partners in the voluntary and community sector to drive behaviour change where it's appropriate, but to do that through positive engagement, positive messaging, rather than the kind of finger-wagging comms methodology that might be tempted elsewhere. Thirdly, to really exploit the possibility through test and trace and to move towards the new World Health Organization model of find, test, trace, isolate and support. So really a much deeper, much more helpful, I think, much more enabling model of contact tracing and testing. In Cambridgeshire, you'll know that we stood up local arrangements to support people regardless and before the national schemes were announced, and those local arrangements have continued. We can provide all sorts of help, practical help and support for anybody that finds themselves needing to self-isolate. And we are now just working on a model of following up with people who are self-isolating for either the 10 or 14-day mandatory period to make sure they are doing so, but more importantly, to make sure that they've got the support they need to carry on doing so. And then the fourth pillar of the new plan is around supporting businesses and employers to be compliant, but also to ensure that they are compliant and where appropriate using our powers and duties to ensure that is indeed the case. The new plan, which is currently going through a period of consultation with our partners, will be owned by the Health Protection Board, which is chaired by Liz, has all of the key senior partners around the table and driven forward by the Programme Delivery Group. And we've agreed this week to expand the Programme Delivery Group so it's less solely council focused and much more a representation of our whole partnership, including our voluntary sector partners. And that Programme Delivery Group will be chaired by one of the senior officers from one of our district councils and a senior police officer to ensure that, again, there's widespread system representation. So I really just wanted to kind of celebrate here this evening the success of the previous plan, acknowledge that we've still got a lot of work to do, but actually we're in an incredibly strong position, and reassure members that the new plan, when it's finally signed off within the next few days, will, I think, position us well to see through to vaccination and life back to some sense of normality sometime next year. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any questions of Adrian? Don't see any hands. Well done, Adrian. Well done, Christine.
Hello, good evening.
The next one, 6B.
Thank you very much. Just before I start, I just looked up about Father Christmas, and apparently there was a petition lodged with the UK government to make him exempt from coronavirus rules this year. And the UK government responded to say household deliveries were still permitted, and they had given him advice on how to minimise contact. So just in case anybody was worried about that. Before I start.
I like it. Congratulations, congratulations on your award as well.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Peterborough, actually, on the award.
Your day, we couldn't tell you.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly take you through the strategy that we have developed alongside the whole of the Warn and Inform Communications Cell, which is part of the LRF response to pandemic, which our council leads the communications, but we've got an awful lot of partnership working involved. We developed a strategy for the national lockdown period, which is almost on the point of being delivered, and I have circulated an update to all members of the actions throughout the whole of the Warn and Inform group for your information. But today I just wanted to update you on the strategy for the next steps. You have that with the papers, but the key things that I wanted to highlight to you was that the strategy is very much based on SAGE advice, the SAGE advice from the government's scientific advisors, also from information and feedback that we're getting back from ways of communicating around the world. We've based quite a lot of the work that we're planning to do on some very successful work done by the state of Victoria in Australia, on messages from the LGA, and also on our own experience since March of very successfully delivering communications across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Our aim is very much to help people adjust their way of life over the next period and through the winter, so that they can continue to live safely until such time as a vaccine is approved and rolled out enough to take proper effect. As Adrian said, we're not basing it on finger wagging. We're not basing it on trying to confuse people about the rules and the things that they can't do. What we want to do is provide them with a way of being able to live their lives, but live their lives safely. So we are basing it on a risk, not rules principle. So we want to highlight how they can avoid the risks. So rather than just trying to get around the rules, what is it that they can do safely? So we have a whole toolkit of messages, materials, social media posts, media activities, videos, posters, all sorts of things that we're developing at the moment, which will be ready to go out throughout the whole Warn and Inform team as of Tuesday to pick up the new restrictions, the new information, and the new sort of design for living that we're hoping to encourage across the whole of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We also want to help people understand what, you know, the true picture of what it's like to live with COVID, or what it's like to work and support people who are suffering from COVID. So we are also working again throughout our whole Warn and Inform team to identify suitable case studies. So we are looking not just for people who have had COVID and recovered, but people maybe who've had long COVID, talking about that. We're working with the CCG, with Gary's team to identify doctors and nurses and clinicians to talk about what it's like to work on the wards at the time. We'll be working with Charlotte and her team to talk to people in care homes about what it's like to, you know, hold the hands of people who are suffering and can't see their families. We want to make sure that people understand that there is a real risk here, and by following the rules, living safely, we can minimise those risks over the winter. We want to particularly target support to people who are most vulnerable. So as Adrian was saying, we were first off the blocks to make sure that people had the support that they needed, and we want to make sure there's not a single person who doesn't understand the support that's there and available to them to help them self-isolate, or to help them if they are suffering through this period. So if they are isolated and feel that they might be lonely, and what support is available for them. If they're suffering with their mental health, what might be available for them. If they're in a situation where they're faced with domestic violence, what help is available for them. If they're a carer of somebody, you know, they may not be alone, but it's still very, very lonely being a carer in a time when you can't get out and see people. What help is available for those people? We also particularly want to highlight hope. We know that, you know, there will be a vaccine, and hopefully there'll be a vaccine approved before Christmas. We don't want people to throw away the sacrifices that they've been making since March, when an end is in sight. So we want to keep people going by saying, you know, it's one last push for Peterborough, one last push for Cambridgeshire, and we can bring the infections down. We don't want to go through the winter with rising levels of infection. We want people to be able to see their families. We want to go into the spring in the best possible state that we can, so that we're ready and able to absolutely maximise the vaccine across the whole of the patch. So as I say, we've got a whole load of information which is being prepared now. We're developing it. We're developing the case studies across the whole patch. We're working with all of the Warn and Inform team to get it out, and I will be bringing back regular updates to all of you about what we're doing and the effectiveness of it. I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you.
Not about Father Christmas though.
Oh, really? You can say what you bought me. Right, hey, members, any questions of Christine? Looks like you've got away with it as well. I can't see anybody else wanting to ask you a question. Well done. Must have been very comprehensive. And we come back to Adrian Chapman now to do 6C, which is community engagement.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, everyone, me again. So I mentioned before, and certainly Christine did, the importance of the community's own response to the situation we find ourselves in. And again, without wishing to kind of slap ourselves on the back too much, I think we should just pay tribute to the incredible response so far from our communities across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And there was mention of an award earlier. That's very much about the way communities have responded and worked with our comms colleagues in Peterborough. But in my eyes, they're all winners. We've been supported by an incredible array of voluntary and community sector organisations. Some 38 organisations were on a call with me on Tuesday of this week, part of our community resilience group, and that number has been consistent since March on a fortnightly basis. And that's 38 different organisations from across the voluntary community, faith and public sector coming together in a true spirit of camaraderie, where a lot of the traditional barriers that often we perceive there to be around working collaboratively have been smashed down, and you know, we've just rolled our sleeves up and got stuck in. And I am absolutely determined, and I know most of us share this view, to maintain that spirit and that attitude and the progress we're making way beyond the pandemic. So there are very few good things that have come clearly from this situation, but that spirit of cooperation is certainly one of them. I can say with hand on heart that those partners remain alongside us now more than ever, and we've recently given the CRG members an opportunity to rethink whether they can commit that to that level, and they all came back universally saying, no, please, let's stick with this, let's stick with the fortnightly routine, and that was incredibly heartwarming. But also those organisations that aren't around that table, of which there are many, many more, mutual aid groups, community organisations, residents associations, parish councils, have all stood up, as we all know. I've said it here before, without being requested to do so, and I know we'll continue to do so. So I really, first of all, wanted, again, just to provide reassurance to the board that we remain well supported, and that community response will continue to be driven at pace through the new plan and through the work that Christine is doing, as directed by the Health Protection Board, by Gillian as the upper tier chief exec lead, and by Liz as the DPH. But I also just wanted to say something briefly about Peterborough, if I may, because obviously Peterborough, with its higher levels of prevalence, remains a concern for us all. I do think, and it's really hard to prove this, but I think we all share the view that Peterborough has done incredibly well, despite having a number, fortunately, below 200. There's something about being below 200, isn't there, at the moment, that feels a bit better, but probably would have been far higher had it not been for the community response. And certainly if you compare Peterborough with some other towns and cities of similar profile, though their numbers are an awful lot higher, but we are not complacent and there is a lot of work to do. So I just wanted to quickly summarise further enhancement of activity that we will start to see in Peterborough from next week. This is important for the rest of the county as well, because we are very much building a response in Peterborough, which we're sharing with our district and city council colleagues through their own gold command arrangements and their rapid response teams. So in Peterborough from Monday, we're tripling the amount of marshal capacity we have in the city to a team of 30. Marshals will operate across Peterborough on a 7-day shift pattern, 9 AM to 9 PM. And that timing is flexible. So we might find that on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, they need to operate further into the evening. That's perfectly possible. Now, marshals are important. They provide reassurance, they provide education, they provide awareness, they often provide advice to businesses. They're not there in the spirit of what Christine's described to wag their fingers at people. They are there to guide, to cajole, to encourage, but they will intervene where they see flagrant flouting of the rules, because this is about keeping people safe. We're supplementing the marshal activity, and marshals will operate, I should say, across all of Peterborough, not just in the built-up urban areas. We're supplementing that with some significant communications work, part of the plan that Christine's already described, so information boards, lamppost banners, roundabout messaging, and a fantastic LED van, which is literally what it sounds like, a van with a great big giant LED screen on the back. The beauty of that is you can drive it right into the heart of communities, and you can put all sorts of fantastic messages on the back of it in a whole range of languages, and that's it's an incredibly impactful way of just reminding people constantly of the need to follow the rules. Peterborough was also the first area in the country to translate materials into video messaging, and that was all done voluntarily by our amazing community representative colleagues and faith leaders. That again forms part of the next enhanced phase of our activity. Those messages clearly available to Cambridgeshire organisations and partners, but also are being used nationally. And then something that we're really enhancing is our work with community groups, targeted work with community groups. And we've segmented our communities into much more granular levels of activity. So older people, sort of 80 plus, people who are 60 plus, working age adults, younger people but of working age, so up to the age of about 29, those young people that are adolescent aged, and then segmenting our communities by nationality, by faith, by employment type even. And we have invested significant sums in commissioning community-based activity. Often messaging to some of our communities is far better coming from the community themselves, and we're building on years of work to grow the capacity of those communities, and they're now coming into their own. So again, for reassurance, I just wanted to make the board aware that there is a huge focus on Peterborough. We are not going to let that number drift away from us and continue the fight to drive it down. And I know that you're behind us, and I know our communities are behind us. And obviously happy, as always, to be held to account on this. We've got a really strong and robust plan, lots of support, and I hope to be reporting back to you next time we meet in much more favourable terms. Hope that's helpful, and as always, happy to take any questions.
Like buying a pair of shoes, isn't it? You feel happier if it's £9.99 rather than 10 quid, because I can remember when we were, we're still under 20, not 200.
Absolutely, John. You're absolutely right, Chair. There is something symbolic about the number. It's way too high, even at 198 or whatever it was. That 9, yeah, there you go.
Probably 0.9 as well.
But let's drive it down to double figures, then let's get it down to single figures. That's the, and we won't let up until we get there.
Okay. Any questions of Adrian? Okay. I don't see any.
Chair, Councillor Handley's got his hand up.
Has he?
Yeah, sorry, I can't find where I put my hand up.
Can't you?
On Zoom, no, it doesn't appear to be on my screen. Anyway, I wonder if I could just mention, mental health, because at South Cambs we've been running, we've had 2, and we're planning a 3rd meeting with community groups. And one thing that's come across loud and clear, that mental health of people is definitely on a slide. I mean, isolation, social isolation. And also, the thought, people thinking that they're not going to be able to see their loved ones at Christmas is a big thing for some people. It really is. And at South Cambs, we're going to be arranging for mental health professionals to speak to the community groups, because there's evidence that they are kind of taking on some of the baggage that they get, not baggage, some of the stories, the grief they get from the people they speak to is actually weighing heavily on some of these people. So I would say, to other community, to other districts and other councils, look out for that, because it's a real serious problem. And I think after Christmas, it's going to get even bigger.
You're probably right. Especially if you can't celebrate Christmas as well, because you'd be even more isolated, wouldn't you? Okay. Adrian, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in response briefly to that, I absolutely echo those concerns. We've seen in the latest lockdown, although the calls for service into the hub network have been far fewer from people who are clinically extremely vulnerable, the nature of those calls has been much more complex and presenting more complex issues, definitely associated with loneliness, isolation, fear, anxiety, and mental health. I just wanted to say, though, that there was a really great piece of work done by our health colleagues earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, for the community resilience group that I mentioned, which led to a really helpful toolkit being produced with some amazing hyperlinks on it to all sorts of tools and places to go for advice and help, which I'd be really happy to share with you as a board, and I'm sure they'll still be current and up to date. So if that can be captured as an action, I'll make sure that comes your way.
Adrian, can I ask you something? I found out yesterday something that I didn't know, and probably a lot of people don't know, but if vaccinations are going to be for the elderly and care workers and old people's homes and that sort of stuff, you've got to have the flu jab before you can have certain vaccines. Do we need to do a bit of publicity on that to get the flu jabs up?
Yes, I heard that too yesterday. I think we were probably in the same meeting. Perhaps I'll pass to Liz to comment, if I may, on the health-related aspects, or even Gary, and then perhaps Christine on the comms element of it.
Yes, I think the issue is that if you're eligible for the flu vaccine, then you should have the flu vaccine a certain length of time before you have the COVID vaccine. So, and Gary may want to come in on this because the NHS is actually doing this, but there's been a real push to make sure that everybody gets their flu vaccine who's eligible for it, and that will go down in age to the 50 to 64-year-old age group, just to get everyone vaccinated so that then when the COVID vaccine is available, there isn't a problem with people needing their flu vaccination and then having to wait for the COVID vaccination. And there is some evidence that having flu and COVID together is particularly bad, which is not really surprising. So that's another reason for people to get their flu vaccination now and make sure that they're protected. Gary, I don't know if you want to add to that at all. I think you're on mute, Gary.
Sorry, thank you. Just you've covered the main points there. Just to say it's actually a point of celebration. I think we've had by far the most successful in terms of numbers flu vaccination campaign this year. It has been extended to additional groups now, and as Liz says, whilst we're waiting for the COVID vaccinations to come online and be approved, it is important that people, when called for their flu vaccinations, do present early, because both from a capacity point of view, but also because there will need to be a delay between having had the flu vaccination and moving on to your COVID vaccinations. So I'd encourage anyone that is eligible and invited for a flu vaccination to get that done in quick order. Thank you.
The question was, do we need to do some publicity on it to make sure that those that haven't had it, I mean, some doctors write and ask you to come in, others don't. So do we need to just make public aware that they need to get a flu jab?
Well, I think there's a lot of communication has gone out, but it's obviously not landed everywhere. So yes, I don't think we can ever overdo the communications, can we? So I'll take that back into the CCG. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, it's got Peter Hudson.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one on the flu jab. I'm in the 55 to 64 group. I'm not telling you how close to 64 I am, but it ain't that far. And I had my flu jab. I had my flu jab about 3 weeks ago by really excellent local doctor in Willingham, which I'm sure Bill looks after well. They didn't send for me. I just had to phone them up and ask them when they would be looking at the over 55s, and they said, we'll make your appointment in November. That's when we're looking. So they made me appointment on the spot, and I went and had it. So we do need to communicate with people to say, don't sit at home waiting for the phone to ring or a letter through your door. Give your local practice a ring to see what they're doing. And if they're like my local practice, hopefully they'll get in quickly. Going on the other issue, perhaps Liz, you could help me here. Talk about mental health issues and people needing urgent help. Do we still have? We still do. I hope we do. Have the 111 option too?
Liz?
Yes, and again, Gary may want to come in. My understanding is that we have a range of options. In fact, we have more options than we used to. So there is 111, option 2 for those mental health crises. But we also have a voluntary sector telephone counselling service, which has extended its hours. And we have other web-based services which have been further developed over the course of COVID. So there is, I know, some more, and Christine can fill in on this, there's going to be some more campaigning and information coming out on mental health with lots there for the public. And I would recommend the Keep Your Head website, which is a Cambridgeshire and Peterborough website. And Keep Your Head it's collaborative between the NHS, the voluntary sector and the council. And it really has lots of information about the different ways to get help. So I would really push, go to Google Keep Your Head mental health Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and there's some very good information there.
These the messages, Chair, I think through you, if I may. These are the messages we need to get out there for people. So 111 option 2 is still there, and there's a fantastic service because I've witnessed it myself, not personally, but I helped a local resident on option. On that option.
Glad you clarified that, Peter.
Yeah, thank you.
Gary, did you want to comment on that or not?
No, just to reiterate what Liz said, if people find themselves in extremis and it's an emergency, that 111 option 2 is a 24/7 option for mental health crisis, and the people there will be able to direct people to immediate help. And that Keep Your Head website is a very good starting point because it will signpost people to the most appropriate care in their locality.
Thank you for that. Got Charlotte Black next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to confirm with the board that the CCG and the local authority are working really closely together to make sure we get really good uptake of the flu vaccine in care homes at the moment. So we're keeping a really close eye on that and making sure that if there are any barriers or difficulties, we get them sorted out really quickly. So that's all happening at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Christine, no doubt you've got some jobs to do from that conversation.
Quite a lot. We've got the next iteration of the Now We're Talking campaign, which will start from Monday, and we've worked again very closely, particularly with the CCG and voluntary organisations, and that's absolutely aimed at making sure that all of the available facilities for people who are having problems with mental health, right the way from quite serious things to people who are just finding it very difficult to cope at the moment. So that starts from Monday. We've also been working with Laura Halstead and the CCG teams about some more flu materials going out to start at the beginning of December when the over 50s flu vaccinations start. So again, that is planned for next week. So quite a lot more information will be going out about that as well.
Sorry, Christine, through you, Chair, can I just ask you to repeat, Christine, the name of the thing that that's going out on the 1st of December? The mental health thing?
Mental health is Now We're Talking.
Now We're Talking, okay.
Now We're Talking, yes. I'm sure it's Now We're Talking.
Thank you.
If it isn't, perhaps you'd let the councillor know, all right?
Will do.
Okay. I've got Peter, that's jumping all over the place. Roger.
Yeah, I just want to come back on the flu jabs, if I may, Chairman, because I actually ran up my doctors this morning, and because obviously I just scrape into the over 50s myself.
Really?
Yeah. And I said, are you going to call me or what? And they said, no. And they looked me up and they said, well, we haven't got you down. You don't have flu jabs. And I said, yes, I do. I went to the chemist. She told me to go to the chemist last year. They said, oh. So it's really important we get the message out there. The doctors aren't necessarily going to contact you unless you're on the system with the doctors. And so we really do need to get that messaging out. So there you go, Christine. You thought you had a weekend off, didn't you?
Okay, and I haven't got any more questions, but I don't want to prolong the meeting. But Gillian, did you want to say anything about vaccine delivery?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to say that at our next meeting, this next meeting, it would be, and I'm going to contact, as I said to you yesterday, colleagues in the CCG and Dr. Fiona Head to do a presentation to this board, because what we want to do, and I know you do as a board, support the vaccine rollout to make sure that it gets to everybody and that the messages and the kind of engagement which this board leads, it is properly managed. So we'll be bringing that back to your next meeting and just making sure that that vaccine rollout gets to everyone, and that this board can help lead some of the community related engagement and making sure we get it to the right places and to perhaps some of the most difficult to reach. So that will be at your next meeting, Chairman.
So will we be calling a meeting especially for that, because we don't have any further meetings planned, and hopefully
outside of this, I'll talk to you and Councillor Hickford, and we'll work out a timetable for that and call it at the appropriate time.
Okay. Is everybody happy that we've concluded the menu for this evening? Ray Bisbee, also a yes.
Yes. I just wonder if I can give the update that I gave at the SCG, in that with businesses opening, I have been aware that shop workers and distributors who have customer facing jobs are receiving lots of aggression, verbal and physical abuse. I have spoken with Usdaw, who represent shop workers and distributors. As a result, the Police and Crime Commissioners Association have got together, and we've produced a toolkit which is called Keeping Christmas Kind. That has been put out to all our partners. It's on my website, and it's making sure that people don't get aggressive. We have got posters and videos and everything else that Christine said she's got as well. So that's starting us from the 1st of December. As well as that, I am aware that we have got a Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire drink, drug and distractions campaign that's going to be going on through December into the new year. Obviously, it does have an impact on the blue light services, where people have been having incidents where they've crashed, but actually it's the NHS where they are actually taking up time because they've been drinking and they've crashed the vehicles. So we're having this campaign, and we know that in the 5-day Christmas reduction of COVID rules and regulations, that it's likely that the roads will be even more packed. And I have raised this with the Chief Constable, and we are looking at it, and we will have police out checking the roads and making sure that people are being safe. And so that's my update, and hopefully everybody will stay safe. Thank you.
Has anybody else got any other business? Right. I hope you all have a good weekend. Thank you for that. I think it was a good meeting, and I'm sure we're reassured that Father Christmas will be coming.
And Chairman, can I say I've found the raise hand function